Welcome to another episode of the WCPO High School Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Dyer. A little bit later on in this episode, we're going to be talking to Journey to the Tourney director Bryce McKee about the upcoming Ohio high school girls basketball season. There's going to be a big tournament coming up at Lakota West the weekend of November 21st, and Bryce will talk about all the top area teams and players that are going to be in that event, and you definitely don't want to miss that. But we are in a new month, November. High school football playoffs are hitting the stretch run here for a lot of these Cincinnati area teams. We have 5 divisions that are still up for grabs and hoping to get to Columbus for a state championship later this month. And we're going to talk to Anderson head football coach Evan Dyer as he kind of breaks down the big Division II Region 8 final with Lasalle at Wynton Woods this Friday night. Anderson played both teams this season, so Evan has some great insight about what makes both teams go offensively and defensively, along with special teams. This High School Insider podcast is presented by our local Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Chick-fil-A restaurants. Fall is sweeter with a chocolate fudge brownie or mocha cream cold brew. Get yours today. Well, St. Xavier takes on Springfield in a Division I state football semifinal this Friday night at Piqua High School. And obviously St. X coming off that big 10-7 win at Lakota West in the regional final. Was able to catch up with Bombers head coach Steve Specht after the game. But first, a conversation with Springfield News-Sun reporter David Jablonski. I wanted to learn a little bit more about the Bombers' opponent, and David was able to speak with me about Springfield, not only their talent offensively, but defensively as well. Let's take a listen now what he said about this young, talented team. And David, thanks for taking a few minutes. How are you?
No problem. Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm doing well.
Well, Cincinnati area football fans would be familiar with Springfield, given they played Elder in the regional final last year, 31-24. Elder won that game, obviously, and ended up being the Division I state runner-up. But I'm just struck by looking at the GWAC website, the amount of young talent that is on both sides of the ball again. A lot of juniors and sophomores. I mean, just give us maybe an overview of the Springfield team and how talented they are.
Well, it's been a program that's been building for a number of years now, starting when Maurice Douglas took over 5 or 6 years ago. I go way back with Springfield to the early 2000s, and when they had 2 high schools, North and South, and they merged in 2008. Then 2009, 2010 had Trey DePriest, the Alabama recruit, who led them to the playoffs. But then there was some really down years. 1-win year, I think, at least once in there before Douglas took over after success at Trotwood Madison, and he's taken the program to new levels. They talk about unfinished business because of that loss to Elder last year. And, this looks like a team. Of course, they're going to be facing some big boys here this week, and certainly in the state championship game if they get there. But it looks like a team that, could take that next step and win Clark County's first state football championship. Clark County has never had a state football championship.
Obviously, it'd be very significant indeed. 19-0 win over Olentangy Liberty last week in the regional final. And maybe give us a sense of a lot of standouts that, like I said, that some Cincinnati area football fans will be familiar with. Junior quarterback Taishan Smoot, he's thrown for over 2,000 yards, 23 touchdowns. He's rushed for 498 yards and 9 touchdowns. Tell us a little bit about him and how talented he is for their offense.
Yeah, it all starts with him. He may be the best quarterback I've seen in the county in almost 2 decades of covering high school football. And I was talking to one of the college coaches recruiting Friday night on the sideline, and he kind of agreed with that. There's been some good ones, but he has really taken this program to a new level. He's got a lot of weapons. He can run it. He can throw it. Their only loss was to Northmont, an undefeated team, and they were up 28-7 in the first quarter in that game. Had like 3 touchdowns in the first couple minutes, I think, maybe in the first 4 minutes. They scored early. They scored often. Still up 28-14 in the fourth quarter before Northmont, a really good team, staged an amazing comeback. And they would have met 2 weeks ago, but Northmont had to forfeit because of a COVID case. So, we'll never know what would have happened in that game. So Springfield got a little bit lucky in that regard, but they were certainly capable of beating Northmont if they'd gotten a second chance. But, Smoot is very impressive. He's only a junior, took over as the starter last year. His top receivers are Ben Van Noord and Anthony Brown. A lot of guys touch the ball, but those are the guys who get in the end zone the most.
You mentioned that Northmont playoff game from a couple of weeks ago that was canceled. And, every team, it seems like in the state of Ohio, has had this unique season and has been affected one way or another, whether or not they've had to cancel or forfeit a game. Obviously everybody is in different situations, but how do you think Coach Douglas and maybe the Springfield team, how did they use that extra week to maybe help them in this playoff run? I mean, obviously you got to be ready for anything at any moment during this entire season. What did Coach Douglas say about that?
Well, he told me he went on that Friday night and paid the $9.99 or whatever it cost to watch the game on the OHSAA website so he could scout Olentangy Liberty. So, they were very disappointed to not get a play, and they were very disappointed for Northmont, too, because I know Douglas knows a lot of the coaches on that staff. Tony Brewery, the Northmont coach, used to coach Springfield South High School, 15, 20 years ago. And he knows a lot of guys on Springfield staff, and I think maybe even coached a couple of them during his time at Springfield. So there was a lot of sad feelings on both sides. But you're right, every week is a gift if you get to play. I went through all the brackets last week to see how many games have been forfeited in the playoffs, and it was only 5% of however many games it was. So most games are getting played. Northmont was by far the most high-profile team that had to cancel. Most of the teams that have had to cancel are double-digit seeds. But you just know it can happen. It's 2020. It would be really bad if it happens at this point in the playoffs.
Definitely. Defensively, what do you see from this team?
Well, they were great last week. Just did not give Olentangy anything. I mean, their only positive play was really a fake punt that extended their first drive, and that drive ended up going nowhere anyway. And Jokel Brown was really good, one of their defensive linemen, a guy who was out earlier in the year with an injury. Delian Bradley is one of their guys in the secondary. I've seen him come up with a couple picks this year in the games I've seen. But it's a team effort, a lot of big dudes, a lot of guys who can play. Pretty impressive to shut down Liberty, which hadn't been shut out in more than 2 years.
Any other thoughts on this team? And I don't know if you had a chance to speak with Coach Douglas yet. We're recording this on Monday morning.
No, I'm talking to him Wednesday, so I haven't talked to him this week. Okay. But we didn't know who they were playing when I talked to him after the game Friday. Hadn't yet got the final score on St. X or Lakota West, but I think they know these are the toughest games. I'm sure they saw that last year with Elder. Teams that have won state championships like Xavier and Pick Central on the other side of the bracket. So Springfield is entering uncharted territory. Last year was their first state semifinal appearance. So if they can get past that game, it'll be a huge step for the program, and there'll be a lot of excitement in Springfield, even if it's only family and friends going to the games. It'll still be a big moment if they can get there.
David, really appreciate your time and perspective. Where can people follow all your coverage?
SpringfieldNewsSun.com, and we got all the area playoff coverage on DaytonDailyNews.com as well. Journal News too for teams closer to Cincinnati.
Great, David Jablonski, appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem.
Well, obviously, this is going to be a great matchup on Friday night there at Piqua High School as David broke down the Springfield football Wildcats and their quarterback, Taishan Smoot, the junior. He is definitely one to watch. Was able to catch up with St. Xavier coach Steve Specht after the Bombers' big win at Lakota West. This was a nail-biter till the end. 31 seconds to go, the Bombers scored on a Liam Clifford touchdown reception. But Steve not only talked about that game, but how much this season has been unique for St. Xavier.
I've said it from the outset. I'm just very grateful that we were able to play a football season this year. I think our kids have done a tremendous job of, we like to talk about clearing the mechanism and getting rid of the outside noise and just focus on coming in, giving your personal best, be your best every day. Don't worry about anything else. And these guys have done a great job with that. I'm so proud of the senior class. There's only 22 of them, but they've taken owners, so they're the Warriors. I told them way back when it's the smallest senior class we've had in my tenure, and they are Warriors. And just how they battled through all this has been tremendous to see where we are right now.
Well, you heard from St. Xavier coach Steve Specht, obviously, about that big matchup this Friday night at Piqua. There's another big matchup, and as we all know, Divisions 2 through 7 are a week behind from Division 1. So we're talking about the Division 2 regional final in Forest Park this Friday night as Lasalle takes on Wynton Woods. And a coach who knows both these teams very well was Anderson coach Evan Dyer. Let's take a listen to see what he says about this matchup. Evan, thanks for taking a few minutes. How's your week going so far on this Monday?
It's great to talk football at any time. Especially after the Bengals win and huge Bearcats win.
There we go. Great weekend for for those teams for sure. But obviously Anderson played at Lasalle last week in a Division II Region 8 semifinal, and LaSalle won 55-30. But definitely wanted to highlight your team, Anderson football program, the 5th consecutive season of at least 7 wins on the year. And we're going to talk about your season here in a little bit. But definitely want to mention, I mentioned this over the weekend, your senior quarterback, Jackson Kuhn, threw for 505 yards in that Friday night game there at Lancer Stadium. And he unofficially entered the OHSAA record book for the most passing yards in a single game. The minimum is 500 yards, and obviously he passed that. So 44 of 73 for 505 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm going to talk about your team here in a second, but can you just talk about Jackson, not only what he meant Friday night for you guys, but his entire season, maybe his entire career as well?
Oh, I think the biggest thing is that Friday night just showed how good Jackson was throughout his career here. And I'm very happy that he got to end his career on a high note. I know we didn't win the game, but LaSalle's defense is really, really good. And we were able to do some things against them. And now the 2 best teams in our region get to play on Friday nights. But Jackson was injured as a junior and didn't get to play his last 2 games. And I'm very happy that he got to play all 10 games this year, stayed healthy, and was able to catapult us in the regional semis through a pandemic. He was very close to Coach Lenza, who passed away, and he was able to fight through adversity and to get our team to where it was. Hopefully it's a great memory as he walks down his path of life.
Well, I was able to highlight, fortunately, him earlier this year on WCPO, and great rapport with his dad, Doug Kuhn. And in your words, Jackson bleeds the orange and black, and certainly showed that throughout his entire career there within the program. But as I mentioned, 5th consecutive year of 7 or more wins for the team, Evan. I know a very unique season. We've talked about it at length in previous interviews and stuff like that. But when you look back at this season, what are you most proud of from the program?
Oh, I think without a regular off season to fight to get to 7 wins, when we were returning very little on defense and we're returning very little on the offensive line, to be able to compete in our league, you have to control the line of scrimmage. And we did a really, really good job of that throughout the year. And we improved. Mike, I think the biggest thing is that we had 2 devastating losses for Twin Woods and Kings in the beginning, and we were able to keep improving. And that just shows signs of how much our kids love our program, and we're committed to daily improvement. So to get to 7 wins after the adversity we fought this year was outstanding. I think our senior leadership was great. And, we came up short versus a really, really good football team that's the defending state champs. And I think our kids can look back on it and be very, very proud of beating Piqua, who was undefeated and was ranked 6th in the state. And I wouldn't have it any other way. We challenged ourselves. We didn't play great at the beginning of the season, and we improved. I think every coach wants to be able to say that to their team and their program at the end of the year.
We're going to get to your take on this big LaSalle Wynton Woods regional final here in a quick second. But you had mentioned to me, we talked about the uniqueness of the season and everybody making the postseason, and how much you like that. You like that everybody makes the playoffs. And I know there's kind of 2 sides of this. There's some that still say, hey, you still like the computer points, the Harbins, as it's been referred to. And obviously in 2021, the plan now is to go from 8 teams to 12 teams per region in each division. But give me kind of a summary now that you've kind of completed the season, and maybe have you done any convincing maybe from those other coaches who still like the computer points?
I think the biggest thing is that to use the computer points, but to allow everybody in. Everybody got a choice to be either in the playoffs or not in the playoffs. And I look at the coaches that are against it and say, have you ever been in a small school and had that Hoosiers movie feel where you can compete against anybody? And I bet you some of those coaches that are against it have not. Or as I look in the playoffs, there was a lot of close upsets in the playoffs that teams wouldn't have been in. And, I think that's the biggest thing is that I've coached in small school, I've coached in big school, and I would have loved to have a challenge to be in the playoffs. I would have loved to be able to play everybody in the regular season and not worry about the records. I look at, Wynton Woods, LaSalle, and Kings and us and everybody else in our region. How cool would it be to have a regular season matchup versus to see Wynton Woods versus LaSalle, Anderson versus LaSalle, all those different matchups that nobody gets to see in regular season because you're locked into a conference, you're locked into this, and to be able to, everybody makes the playoffs and to see different matchups. And I truly liked the different matchups this year because first of all, allowed teams to be really, really into, do you want to buy? Do you not want to buy? We got to play Withrow. Other teams took a buy. And then the safety of it, Mike, I think the biggest thing as a coach is that you never rush anybody back from injuries. And nobody really wants to talk about that, is that kid gets concussion, but you have to make the playoffs and you have a hard sell between parents, doctors, everybody else. And safety protocol is always number one in everything and every student athlete. But I think as coaches, I think we have to understand that everybody makes the playoffs. Let the kids sit. Let the kids sit with a sprained ankle. And let's get back to being a great mentor for kids and not push ourselves about wins and losses. And let's take care of the kid for his entire life. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned throughout this year is that you put everybody in the playoffs, the pressure to win every game is still there. The pressure to take chances, at some chances you want to take, some chances you don't. And I think that's where everybody has to look at it, especially in Division I and, Region 4. A lot of those guys were like, well, I don't want everybody in the playoffs. Well, if there's a choice, good friend of Western Hills, he chose not to get in the playoffs. That's fine. Other teams, when I was at Oak Hills, I would have probably wanted to see what it was like to be in the playoffs, to see how good we are, see if we can make the daily improvement, and then have games afterwards. And I think that's one of those things where leave it up to the coaches, because I think the coaches have a great feel of what we want to do and for our teams and our kids for the future.
So just to be clear, you still like the computer points, but would you allow the coaches to vote for the seeding as it were, like for this season?
Yes, I think the coaches should, and the computer points, and put us together. And I think we can come up with a great system to see if everybody should be in and choose not to. And I think that there's going to be always those teams that are 0-6, 0-7 that chose not to play. And I think the coolest thing was, since public schools wanted to do a city championship. I think that was really, really cool. I think it's outside of the box idea. And I think that's what's best for kids. And kids got an opportunity to compete for a city championship.
It'll be interesting to see what the OHSAA does when all this season is completed and the discussions that go on, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of lively conversations about that. But let's talk about this big Division II Region 8 final. You've played both teams. You have Wynton Woods at 9-0 hosting LaSalle. They are 7-2 with number 1 versus number 2 this week. And I guess let's just start with your most recent opponent being LaSalle. Obviously, they had 445 yards rushing on Friday night. And I guess just give us an indication, Zach Branham, their senior quarterback, obviously another outstanding game for him. But offensively, what do you see there? And maybe talk about their defense, because I know their secondary has been in the spotlight all year.
Oh, I think Zach Branham is very, very, very underrated as a quarterback. His ability to run the football is spectacular. Mike, he can throw the ball just good enough, and his ability to run and lead a football team is really, really special. He reminds me of a smaller Tim Tebow because he's very good in the open field, but as well as 3rd and 2, he does a really good job with his pad level to get the first down. And I think their slew of running backs led by Payne, who didn't play very much and is going to get healthy. I think everybody's waiting to see if Payne's going to come back for this week's game or not. And I think that is key, as well as I think they put a lot of DBs in receiver points of the game to get the ball in open space. I think Zach's going to be able to get the ball to those guys and see if he can make enough plays. Defensively, I think LaSalle, I think their defensive line is really, really good against the run, and it held us to less than 20 yards rushing. I think their DBs do a great job of filling the alley, and they had maybe 1 or 2 missed tackles the other night, Mike, and we couldn't get enough yak after the catch the other night. So I think their DBs versus Wynton Woods' run game of being able to contain explosive plays is going to be really key for them as they face the Warriors.
And you faced Wynton Woods there in Forest Park in late September, 48-13 Wynton Woods. But You only had 33 pass attempts in that game, Evan, compared to 73 on Friday night. But all kidding aside, Wynton Woods obviously having an outstanding season. Michael Wingfield, their 3-year starter, their quarterback, had 122 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He also he rushed for 122 yards, and he threw for 180 yards in that game. But what do you see from Wynton Woods on both sides of the ball?
I think Wynton Woods' passing game versus us was really, really good compared to what we saw at tape, Mike. And I think Wingfield does really good things. I think he's going to have to control the game. I think if he has any turnovers, Lasalle is going to beat him. But his ability to get first downs, he had an explosive run against us on a 3rd and 8, Mike, that it was a spectacular play. But I think the biggest thing is Wingfield versus Zach of who wins the game without having turnovers is going to be key. But I think Wingfield does a really good job in their spread offense, and he gets under center and runs some triple option. And I think it's going to be key of what Lasalle wants to stop and contain. And I think also Wynton Woods has 2 or 3 playmakers that are really, really special that people don't talk about. As I think Spikes is really, really good in open space. And I think it's going to be Lasalle's DBs. Do they contain Spikes? Do they get him to make it 2nd and long, or does he get explosive plays to get them 3rd and short? And that's going to be fun to watch. And then defensively, Wynton Woods does a great job with the defensive back play, but I think their linebacker, number 9, is really, really good as well. And Booker up front, you can't move him, and I think that's going to be the key of Lasalle. Lasalle does a great job with their zone schemes, and if Booker's going to make plays, and number 9, they're really special. I think the DBs are going to challenge LaSalle's receivers. So LaSalle's receivers got to be able to make plays against that great defensive back group.
What's your prediction, Evan?
I think the prediction comes down to Wingfield or Branham making a play in the 4th quarter. And I think it's going to be really, really close because I looked at all the scores coming back. It's always been a close game. And I think it's going to be one of those things where they're going to have a senior moment, Mike, and the winner is going to have the quarterback, the last one with the ball or driving to make a play. And I think the kicking game is really, really good for Wynton Woods. I think their kicker is unbelievable, and as well as LaSalle has a sophomore kicker. So the special teams are going to play a key role into it because Wynton Woods has scored on punt returns and block punts, and LaSalle is just steady. And they're a GCL team. They've fought through that wrecking crew of a schedule. So there's no prediction for me, but I'm telling you, one of the senior quarterbacks is going to have a special moment on Friday night. And we can't wait to watch it.
Great analysis and perspective here from Anderson head football coach Evan Dyer. Evan, really appreciate your time as always, and best of luck to you and your program going forward.
Thanks.
Well, as you can tell, a ton of great matchups this weekend, and we'll have all the bases covered for you in regards to the football playoffs. I want to remind everybody this High School Insider podcast is presented by our local Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the winning play is always chicken. Log into the Chick-fil-A app for easy ordering. So I want to look ahead a little bit to the Ohio High School girls basketball season. I was able to catch up recently with Journey to the Tourney director Bryce McKee as he talked about all the great matchups coming up in a few weeks at Lakota West. Good. Well, Bryce, just tell me a little bit about this upcoming season. As we all know, in every high school sport, doesn't matter what season, it's all been unique this entire year. But it seemed like we were just talking about the state tournament a few weeks ago, or maybe a few years ago, however you look at it. But here we are again on the brink of another season. And what are your thoughts about this uniqueness of this winter?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last year ended, in a way that none of us wanted. But it's obviously important to put health and safety over everything. There were some awesome matchups that would have taken place. And so I know a lot of those similar teams are excited to get back on the court and, prove themselves again, all that kind of stuff. I think we're typically always talking about the same powers, in the different areas and stuff like that, with a couple new teams here and there up and coming. But it should be a really competitive season in every division. We're really excited about Journey to the Tourney to kick it off with a lot of the top teams, both in the area and statewide. I think we have the favorite there in Division 1, 2, and 3 at least. And so, we're just excited to be back on the court. It's going to be different. I think everyone knows that and understands, there will be spectator limits everywhere, and there's going to be times where games get canceled and moved and rescheduled and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just important that we all stay as flexible as we can to allow the players to have a season and do what we can to help them do so.
Great. I might use a lot of this obviously later on too. So give me kind of a summary of the journey to the tourney and what you like most about the schedule and obviously the powerful teams that are coming in.
Yeah, so we originally were going to do 2 days, and we decided with the help of Scott Kaufman there at Lakota West that we should spread it out, do a couple games on Friday to make the games have some more time in between. We're going to clear the building after each game and re-enter so we can clean after each game. We moved the JV games over to the freshman building just to give us more space spectator-wise and all that. But the group of teams is awesome. I mean, we have some great local teams, your typical Cincinnati Powers, Mount Notre Dame, Lakota West, Mason, some great Dayton teams per usual. And then, Roger Bacon should have a great year in Division II. We have Laurel coming from Cleveland in Division II as well, who's probably the favorite. Berlin Highland has to be the favorite in Division III this year. Columbus Afrocentrics right on their heels. They're a little younger this year, but they have a ton of talent. And we're excited to have some different teams. We've, to my knowledge, never had Waynesville there. It's been a couple years for Minster. Magnificat coming down, who had a regional type team last year in the Cleveland area. Reynoldsburg being back, all that kind of stuff. So some really good matchups. And we also have a team from Canada called Royal Crown Academy, who has, I believe, 4 to 5 players, 6'2", 6'3", or above. 2 of them are committed to Syracuse. So they have a ton of talent. So that should be a lot of fun seeing them walk in the gym, and kind of like Hamilton Heights in the past. We don't always see that around here. So some great matchups, some great players, teams, and coaches. And again, we're just really excited and happy to be back on the court.
Great. Obviously, around here in Division I, Mount Notre Dame, I think the discussion starts and stops with the Cougars, and a lot of unfinished business. Got to catch up with Scott Rogers yesterday, and he says not just us; it's a lot of teams will use that as fuel for this upcoming season, 28-0. What do you think of them returning? Obviously, KK, Layla, but what's the how talented is this group? I guess returning.
Yeah, I think Layla has been one of the more underappreciated players around the state. She's just really good. I don't know how else to say it. She rebounds extremely well. Her mid-range is really good. She's really improved her outside shots. So I think she's an elite player in the state. And then KK, obviously, everybody knows about. I think it'll be interesting this year without Makaira there to see how people's roles change and how long that takes them to adjust to that. But they have a ton of talent. They have one of the best coaches in the state, and a tradition that just is really unmatched. So, they're going to have another spectacular year. They start off actually with the Canada team Royal Crown at Journey to the Tourney, and then follow back up with Laurel, the favorite in Division II. So should be a challenging schedule for them early, but, as we've seen in the past, they're more than capable of handling it.
What about in the GMC? Obviously, Lakota West, Princeton, Mason. I mean, it goes on and on. Always a battle for that ultra competitive conference. Yeah.
Princeton's post player, Kyla, transferred over to Mason. So Mason probably would be the favorite there with her and Margot. Really good, combination of talent there. Coach Matula does a great job. Obviously, Lakota West has Chance Gray, one of the best players in the state, and can really score and put up big numbers. So those would probably be the 2 favorites there. And then Princeton right on their heels. Soleil Williams is one of the best sophomores in the country. So she can definitely carry a team there as well. So those would be the big 3 per usual. I think Mason probably has the edge and is probably the team this year that can challenge Mount Notre Dame regionally.
Anybody else in Division I you want to mention in the ECC or Loveland or anybody else?
Not really.
All good. I got you. D2, I mean, Roger Bacon, you have Clarissa Craig going to UC, and then you have name escapes me now. Kylie Shepard going to Providence. Yeah. What do you think about they were right on the brink of a regional title last year. What do you think of the talent for Joe Finnegan returning?
Yeah, I think Joe does a really good job. They're going to be challenged right out of the gate. They play Berlin Highland, favorite in Division III then at Journey to the Tourney. Ton of talent. I think they have the most talent division-wise in that area for sure. The only Division II team probably with similar talent would be Laurel and Cleveland. So they have to be probably the favorite in the area. I think, they got to get over that hump. You have some great other teams regionally with Dayton Carroll and other people that have had some, really positive tournaments, and Alter is kind of on the upswing, I think, again, too. but Roger Bacon is the, team that has a chance to really make a run, if they're playing well at the right time of year.
Great. Anybody else that I'm missing, D2 or D3 from our area? Okay, gotcha. What about just, you mentioned all the, the uniqueness and just getting back on the court and how excited everybody is. I mean, is there just, is it a cautious optimism? Is it, hey, we're going to get this done, even if there's, 300 people in the gym, which is the limit for everything? Or what are the coaches saying? What are you hearing, I guess, around the state?
More than anything, everybody just wants to play. I think everyone is going to have to be, again, really flexible with schedules and things changing and, different recommendations from the state and things like that. Even we feel really good about the season starting on time, but even in the last week, the numbers have, risen fairly dramatically, which is concerning. And again, like at Journey to the Tourney, we're really excited to host the first fairly large tournament, in the Midwest or further out even, but it's also all eyes will be on us to make sure we're following everything and doing things the right way and all of that. So, I think everyone just needs to follow the guidelines that have been put in place, and that's what we can do, to protect the players and the coaches and officials and everybody. I think the general sentiment is if parents and family can watch the kids play, at a worst case scenario, then at least the kids get to play. So, you're going to have your casual fans who want to come sit there all day, and watch, we might not have as much as that this year, those possibilities. But, if people can get in there 20, 22 games, whatever, and we have a tournament, I think everybody will be pretty happy.
Great. What year is this for Journey to the Tourney?
I believe 5.
Okay, great. All right.
We get to stop the road to the shot, and now we have to say road to UD Arena.
UD. Exactly. Anything else you want to mention, or I didn't really just ask?
No, we're going to put out the Classic in the Country schedule in about a week. That's also really, really good. Different regions, so different type of teams, but all the same type powers. I think it'll be a really competitive year in every division, and hopefully we all get a chance to play and keep playing.
Yeah, awesome, good stuff. All right. Well, certainly we will continue to watch the Ohio high school girls basketball scene as it continues to prepare for its season opener the weekend of November 21st. The boys basketball season right around the corner as well. So definitely a busy time of the year as we get football playoffs and the convergence of the upcoming winter sports season. Be sure to check us out on WCPO all weekend. We're going to have all the highlights and interviews from all the top football games. I'm going to be on Sports of All Sorts with our colleague Reggie Wilson on Sunday night, breaking down all the action and looking ahead to the upcoming week as well. Be sure to check out WCPO.com as we're going to have all the state semifinal bracket pairings and locations on Sunday for Divisions 2 through 7 as well. Thanks again for listening. We will talk to you next week.